Welcome to the Newcastle City Council special study session for December 3rd. This special study session, starting at 6:30, is to discuss the recent power outage and any corrective or preventative actions we could take for future power outages. We wanted to get together and briefly discuss it. Please, the record show that all the council members are present, along with the city manager, city clerk, community development director, and public works director. So I will start out by making a few comments, and then I'll ask anybody to chime in. Basically, we want, this is a real informal session. We want to be able to get some any lessons learned from the power outage, some things we can do for future power outages. We do have, and people have asked, we have an emergency response plan, and we do, and it's sort of for things like if Mount Rainier blows up. But we don't really have something if, you know, we have a 3 or 4 or 5 day outage. So we want to focus and maybe tweak that a little bit for future. So one of the things we did as a council earlier this year is we budgeted for a generator for the city hall and for the annex. That was back in April. We delegated money for that. So obviously that hasn't been installed yet. So one of the things that I talked to the city manager about is we're going to get, from going forward, we're going to get monthly updates on the progress of the installation of those generators until they're completely installed and running. So that is obviously a big thing that would have helped our city, a place for people to come, get warm, plug in phones, you know, that sort of thing, maybe get a drink of water, use a bathroom. But we didn't have that available. And then the goal would be to have that for all future events that may or may not happen, and as well as the annex. And the annex having power would allow our public works teams to have a better base of operation as they're helping the community out. So I'll start by asking city manager, can you give us an initial update on where we're at on the generator?
Sure, and I'll invite Director Bronze to chime in if he thinks he needs to, but the first thing we have to do is get scope and fee from design engineers, and we've reached out for that. And so once we get scope and fee back, we'll choose a design engineer and then get into a contract with a design engineer.
Do you have a time frame on that step?
We're a little bit at the mercy of design engineer responding to us, but we would love to be able to put that in front of the council for approval in January, hopefully February at the latest.
Okay. Anything to add, Director Bronze?
Yes, I would just add that, so the funding was approved in April, so even if we had moved forward on April 1st, the generators would not have been placed today. We'd be at best case in the bid process for a contractor to install them.
Right, I understand it's a
okay.
long process.
Yeah.
Granted, I get that. And perhaps, you know, we won't have a 3 or 4 day outage again for many years, hopefully. But if we do, we want to be prepared. So,
right. The goal is to have them, in place by this time next year, if that's possible.
Great, that would be great. So the city manager and I sat into a conference call right after the outage with all the other city managers in the area and the mayors. And Newcastle, honestly, we had a lot of stuff come down, a lot of people without power, but we didn't suffer as bad as a lot of cities in the area. So we really got fortunate. It doesn't mean that wouldn't happen again. So Director Bronze, I'll come back to you, our city manager. Did our public works crews have enough, you know, did we have enough manning to maintain or to respond to issues that as they occurred in the city? Would you change or do anything different?
No, I'd say overall we did have adequate response. A lot of the situations that were out of our control, meaning power lines, we have to stay away from them, and those were the closure issues, mainly Golf Club Road. Actually, there was 3 initially. There's Golf Club Road, Lake Washington Boulevard, and 95th Way, which is actually King County, but it still borders Newcastle. So each one of those situations, our crews had to stand back and wait for PSE to respond. So other than those 3 instances, they were able to keep up, and there's a tree across the road in the Highlands and one on 73rd by Hazelwood, and they were able to respond to those pretty quickly and get those cleared out.
Okay. Regarding PSE, and I know I talked with the city manager, and your comments to me were we were not happy with the response of PSE and as far as updating us. Can you give us some more information? And
Sure.
what we could do different in the future?
Yeah, we'll continue to kind of, as we have opportunities to meet with PSE and meet with regional groups, continue to hammer on that. We were frustrated by We, generally in an incident like this, we would expect to have more information than the general, twice a day update from PSE. Usually, at least in my previous experience with any kind of incidents like this, our government relations representative with our power company has reached out to us very quickly and said, hey, this is where we think we're at. This is the kind of time frame you can expect. And we can at least provide a little additional information to our more local public about where we're at and what's expected than just the generalized, PSE's, it's a huge area. And so that's generally what we would expect to be able to do. Part of the feedback we got with this specific incident was just that it was so massive that it was very difficult to do in any kind of real time or any kind of, more acceptable time frame. But we would still expect, even if that's the information you have for us, we would still expect to get it from you. And that was what our frustration was the getting a response from them.
And you conveyed that to them about for the future?
Oh, yeah.
Correct?
If I could just add on to that, if you don't mind, I separately reached out to our government liaison because King County was holding daily, actually twice daily, once on housing and once just for general situational awareness, and PSC was not there. And I reached out to our contact, as well as King County, and said, hey, I found it pretty striking that that's the number one issue with this incident was lack of electricity, and PSC wasn't there. And King County responded back that, hey, they were unable to get a response from PSC. So I ran that up the flagpole on PSC side, and the next day they had someone on the agenda, but they showed up late and didn't really provide anything. I think they actually just read that script that we got. And then it was the third day on Friday that they had PSC's emergency manager participate in the meeting. So it seemed broader than just Newcastle, that they were not contributing or at the table like other agencies would have liked.
Yeah, I would just add, throughout the outage, we were saying, hey, PSE, this is what we're seeing. Can you give us any information? Where we were, between the crew and A.B. George did some drive-arounds each day. We were able to say, hey, this is what we're seeing in the community, and just trying to get any additional information. They got a constant barrage from Newcastle to give us information. And we would hope, and not having worked with PSE prior to the City of Newcastle, my experience has been that our government relations representative has gotten to me before I could ever pick up the phone to say, hey, what's going on? And so that was a very different experience to have this go around.
Okay. One of the other things that I mentioned in a meeting I had with the city manager, and we're going to probably talk about it at the financial committee meeting, is that where I work at the steel mill, we have a gigantic Connex box, a 40-foot Connex box that is stocked with emergency supplies, and we recycle that every year. So the food, it gets ready to expire, we take it to the food bank. It's got blankets, it's got all kinds of stuff. And I was suggesting that maybe we look into perhaps staging it at the annex or something, a Connex box of emergency supplies, maybe with basic things, water, blankets. We can obviously discuss the different things to put in it so that if we did have the city council chamber open or this generator running, people could come here, we could have some basic supplies for them. Or maybe they could take a blanket home with them or something, right? So we're going to look into that. That's just my own personal opinion, and so we're going to look into that and see if there's a benefit to that, or the Connex boxes are a dime a dozen. You can buy them pretty cheap. So that is one thing that I will be pursuing. So at this point, I'd like to ask other council members if you have some feedback, for good or bad, like what you might think we could do better. What did we do well? Just so we can formulate perhaps a smaller scale plan for future outages. Anybody? Why don't you go ahead, Paul?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate this being brought up. I think I think it's salient in the sense of, my understanding is the last time we had a windstorm this serious, I remember it when I was literally in elementary school, I think it was 2006. So I think it's very easy to have an event like this happen and then just not be like, okay, and then, probably won't happen again for a while, but it'll likely happen again in the future. So I think it's salient now to sort of plan for it for, when we need it, we really need it, but it might not be for a while. So I appreciate that, and I think it's important. Yeah, I think kind of the idea you're talking about of a place where folks can get warm and sort of charge their phones, things like that. I saw, I'm friends with the mayor of Woodinville on Facebook, Mayor Millman, and he posted a lot about they did it at their local library, I believe, and he's a former firefighter, so he's kind of used to the crisis response, but that was really well received. I can ask him about sort of how they set that up, but it was, yeah, essentially like blankets, warm space for people, simple things, I think like water, bottled water, granola bars, things like that. Made a big difference for folks. I know just like anecdotally, my parents were like, oh, we're old and we're cold and we don't like this. But I think really elevating that, just sort of having like a central place, because I think it makes it easier to disseminate information too, right? I just tried to I posted one of the updates from PSC to like the local Facebook group, and I was surprised how much people didn't know from just me sharing that, because it was generally available PSC, Puget Sound Energy information. And I was surprised how much folks didn't know about that. And I know City Manager Pingle was asking me, like, can you send information about the tree removal and all that to people? And I'm trying to fit it in, like, in between wrestling practices and stuff and running around. Like, it'd be nice if there was a central location I think it serves double purpose to those services for people and like a central sort of command to share information. So I think it's really valuable. I just want to underscore that, and I don't know exactly how it would work, but I guess curious too, like if we have it, we talked about the annex, right? And the annex would have backup power for obvious reasons. I don't know if that's the most, I apologize, I don't know if you mentioned another space besides that. I think it might be hard to kind of have people in the annex that walk in, or sort of like have a group of people there. Like the counter is very close to the front. Would it be somewhere else we could potentially do that, or what do folks think?
My thought is that would be here,
Oh, okay.
where I think we have 16 outlets between the front doors into here. And, with a generator and City Hall operating, that makes a huge difference.
Okay.
This would be the place for people to come to get warm and to grab a bottle of water and charge their phones and all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea on the Conex box is if, it was at the annex, then, somebody could go and, hey, bring 25 blankets down or something. Somebody could shuttle back and forth. So there's really no place around this building to put a Conex box, but go ahead, Ariane.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with everything. I mean, I do want to say, I think we've kind of danced around it. If we had a generator, I think we would have been doing a lot of this stuff, and we didn't. So, but even without that, I do appreciate everything that the staff is doing. I know Amy was posting a lot of information on Facebook about, as she was getting it, like what other municipalities had as far as warming stations and other resources that were kind of close by. I thought that was really good. I would say, I don't know if there was, because there was no power here, we couldn't access the website, but it just would have been nice to have had something on our website, just because I heard from a few people saying they went to the website and there wasn't really much there. So just,
The biggest challenge with the website was that it was challenging to work with as far as our staff that have access and know how to mess with it. The
Yeah.
website was persnickety throughout.
sure, and I
so Facebook-
I'm
Facebook
I'm
became
aware of that. Yeah.
reliable thing that we could use.
I just wonder if maybe right now, when everything's fine, we could maybe set up a page already that has a link to Facebook or something that can just easily be thrown up on the front page, and that way, just to direct people to where it's easier to get information, because Amy was doing a great job putting a lot of information out there. And then so I did send out an email, not till Friday, because I didn't have great internet, so it was hard to send emails for, I think, everybody. But once I did, I got some great feedback from residents. I don't know how, I sent it to the city manager and the mayor. So I'm not sure what all we can do, but I did think there were some good ideas as far as like, one thing I heard from a lot of people was they were nervous to go out, even though there was power fairly close by, like down in Renton and up in Bellevue. It was a little scary for people to drive around without the stoplights working because unfortunately, a lot of people don't know or choose to treat them as stop signs when they're out, and it made people nervous. So I don't know if this gentleman suggested that there's some sort of, he said, obtain always stop signs that can be placed in the middle of intersections, like a glorified traffic cone with LED flashing lights on top, or something that we can put in the middle of intersections just to kind of alert people, hey, this is now a stop sign. Again, I don't know if this is something we can do. It's just a suggestion and an idea. And obviously we'd have to store all that stuff. So something to think about. And anyway, there's a lot of other, people were asking about generators for the cell towers, which I'm gonna guess is not under our control. And it sounds like they did put those out, and after a couple days, generators were put out on cell towers, but I don't know if that's,
Well, I know
we
that
knew that was happening.
one of the T-Mobile towers on Gulf Cup Road does have generator backup power that was added in the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
I don't know. Basically, my understanding is all the towers will run for up to 8 or so hours on battery power, and then some have generator. Now, I don't know if they were disabled because of the power lines that went down or telecom. I'm not sure if that was another issue that caused that not to work.
Okay.
It was very interesting where great connectivity was and where it wasn't.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm just kind of relaying some ideas that people threw at me. But I think the main thing I'd like to see is I agree with the basic emergency supplies. And again, once we get generators here, I think we will do a good job of having this be a central place for people to come and get warm. And I felt very lucky that we had water, even though it was cold.
Any other councilor? Go ahead, Prema.
So I think, Jeff, the T-Mobile cell tower generator was not working because the golf course, we didn't have cell service at all. And I think you were on an emergency line, so I was only able to get your text, but not reply back.
Reply.
I don't know if
There's
it,
like an emergency.
I don't know if it's running, but I do know that in fact there's a generator on that tower.
Yeah, probably it was not running, maybe
Yeah.
due to PSC or something. So
not sure.
other idea just I had was, I know the grocery stores also went out of power and a lot of produce went waste. So if we can work with them beforehand, kind of have a plan of at least utilizing some of their produce, bring it to the city hall or somewhere so that, especially like fruits and vegetables, they can still stay okay. And I know there was a question on, right, some people didn't have food or, so maybe we can leverage that with the grocery stores and kind of, repurpose the food supply, with their help. At least make use of the food before it goes waste.
Go ahead, son.
Thank you, Mayor. I shared some information on the Facebook groups and also including for how to get a food stamp for less fortunate people in our community. And I also heard from our residents. They shared their concerns with me. And I feel strongly that our city hall is our focal point. So I really hope, because some residents, they didn't know why the city hall is closed. I think we need to clarify on our website, let them know what really happened. because they just say everywhere went dark. So here said, I'm really concerned that the city's communication to those most vulnerable to the code is lacking. And when you go to the city website, there should be an immediate message to residents that is updated with current information. So all you see is that City Hall is closed due to the storm. City Hall is, we cannot get any help. So in terms of people, they even couldn't go to the internet, and they're not used to utilize online and social media. We have senior citizens there in the community. We need to reach out, and so we're curious if there's a real disaster like earthquake, because we're in such active zone. So when it happens, we really need to be prepared, and so we should let our citizens know what's happening with the current situation. What if we don't have internet? Can we just put some, poster outside the city hall? So with a little bit more detailed information, I do really appreciate, our city workers. They went out, they, clean up, and also Amy constantly updated information. But I still think we can do better. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sun. So, anybody else? Tom, go ahead.
Most of you may have a gas fireplace insert. We do. It has an electric blower on it, but it operates without the blower. So we had one room in the house that was perfectly warm. We found that the gas range in the kitchen, we could light it with a barbecue lighter, so we could cook with no problem. My wife had her birthday on the 21st of November, and so I decided I'd take her. I checked the restaurants in Factoria, and they said they were open. So we drove up there, up the street that Ariana was saying was such a mess, but everybody was stopping at the lights as though they were four-way stops, no problem. So we went up and back and didn't get dinner up there, but we were able to see what everybody else was suffering through.
Okay, I got our list here, and I know the city manager's been taking notes. So, this is a half-hour meeting, but what we're going to do is we're going to take some of these notes and any other public input that we receive and kind of formulate a better plan for short-term power outages that, how to respond and what the city can do. So I'm just going to summarize here real quickly. Okay, obviously the main thing is the generator, right? Director Braun said our public works crews did fine. Of course, I'm sure they would love to have power at the annex. We know we need PSE response times to be better and better communication. So the city manager will be working on that. Connex box is a possibility with supplies, basic supplies. We'll determine how much that costs, how that looks. The website, maybe even if it's difficult to use, you should direct people to social media so we can have more communication. I like the idea of placing a notice if there's no power here right on the door outside City Hall, so if some people drive up, they can see something. Grocery stores maybe collaborating to help distribute produce or make a notice to the public to come and get something if they don't have to throw it away. And possible always stop signs, if we feel that's necessary. So we're going to add to this list. If anybody's listening here or online or whatever, they have ideas, please email the council. We'll collaborate, we'll get these ideas together, and we'll review this at a future date, and we'll say, here's some solid ideas for power outages that will help us the next time it potentially happens. And like Councilmember Charbonneau said, it happens, you think, well, that's it. We don't have to worry about it for a while until, bam, you're not prepared for the next time. So that's what our goal is, to be prepared for the next time. That's what the purpose of this short meeting was. So any other comments, anybody? All right, thank you for that. So we now will be in recess for 6 minutes until the main meeting starts at 7 o'clock. Thank you. If you're a candidate, we got seats up front for the candidates, so come on down if you're a candidate and take a seat. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newcastle City Council regular meeting for December 3rd, 2024. My name is Mayor Clark presiding. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and also being broadcast on our YouTube channel, so you can see it for later viewing if you'd like. Please stand and join me in the flag salute. And City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Burford.
Here.
Councilmember Sherlock.
Here.
Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Charbonneau.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lakotia.
Here,
And Mayor Clark.
Here.
All here, Mayor.
Thank you, City Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have quite a long, perhaps a long agenda. So the first thing up tonight is agenda approval, and I would propose to the council that we do the following, that we, of course, have public comment first, but that we move up the consent agenda and the general business items up ahead of the council comments and the reports, and that if we have time, we come back to that. Are there any objections for modifying the agenda in that manner? Okay, please note the agenda has been changed. The first thing on our list tonight is public comment. So if you would like to public comment, there's a sign-up sheet. The city clerk will hand that to me. If I call your name, please come to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to talk about whatever topic you'd like. Please state your name and neighborhood when you get to the podium. The buzzer will sound when the 3 minutes are up. Carol Simpson, first on the list.
Good evening, council members and public. Carol Simpson, I live in the Lakeview Apartments. Thank you very much for having a follow-up on how power outage affect our city and how the city responded. I don't have a fire, I have a fireplace, wood-burning fireplace, but I worry about living in an apartment complex with fireplaces. I'm worried about people burning the place down, so I'm not going to put a fire in my fireplace to keep warm. It would also be helpful if the city could find out where hotels and restaurants are open so that people who do want to drive and find a hot meal or a hotel would know where those are. We did spend a night in a hotel at SeaTac and have a warm dinner across the street because we were planning to travel the next day. So we just started our travels early at SeaTac. The other thing you need to do is not only meet with the city manager, but meet with Coal Creek Utility District. They too had a power outage. They have a emergency response headquarters in Newcastle. The city used to partner with them. They have extra trucks, they have extra manpower, and they have generators because if you know, Olympus has to pump its sewage up Coal Creek Parkway. You didn't find any toilets not running. They kept everything running. So they're out there responding to a power outage too. They have generators pumping sewage and water around the city. So you need to speak to your utility. They're a partner of ours in an emergency like this. So I encourage you to do those two things. Look to the main arterials. Again, talking about signals. Living down by the freeway, I saw people coming off the freeway. They don't always recognize that there's a signal as you're zooming off the freeway or that they're supposed to stop. that was a very scary intersection. And Lake Washington Boulevard is a thoroughfare through Newcastle. A lot of people use it to bypass Coal Creek Parkway and go down Lake Washington Boulevard, go underneath the freeway and go down Lake Washington Boulevard along the lake and avoid I-405 traffic. So when 405 is closed, there was a steady stream of people coming down Lake Washington Boulevard. That is a street you need to pay more attention to. If I recall correctly, it was a street that the speed limit was reduced, but the signs have not gone up yet. It's a narrow street, there's a lot of guardrails. In the past, the city used to have a guardrail program, a guardrail on the budget. It was a T item. It got eliminated, but there's guardrails that need attention in the city. That's it.
Thank you, Carol. Some excellent points. We'll add those to our list. Thank you very much. There's nobody else signed up for public comment. Therefore, public comment is closed. The next thing we're going to do is we have the consent agenda. So any council member object or require a modification to the consent agenda? Okay, please show the consent agenda approved as written. The first item on our general business is a budget amendment. City manager, do we have the finance director available? Okay, I'll turn it over to the finance director who's online, Lindsay Chambers. Go ahead, Lindsay. Oh, hold on, we can't hear you.
Try again, Lindsay, now, please.
No, not yet.
Lindsay, can you hear us? Oh, I hear something. I wouldn't say, is it?
Try again, please, Lindsay.
Sure thing. Can you guys hear me okay now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your patience and your flexibility with allowing me to present from here. Before you is a budget amendment. This is the last one we will be presenting for the year. It's primarily housekeeping items, as I mentioned at the last meeting. We have a couple salary lines that are getting pretty close, and so we chose to make an amendment to those just to be safe. And then we have a change to T46. Our design costs were a little bit higher than what we expected to run into this year. So we are asking to increase that slightly and offset that with a reduction in construction. We also had a similar situation with S17 and the swim fund. We are looking at additional design costs in this year. And then lastly, cumulative reserve is primarily being adjusted for the pandemic relief plan changes that were approved at the last meeting. The total result of this is an increase to the budget totals, both revenue and expenditure sides, of $31,952. And with that, I'll take any questions on the budget amendment.
Any questions for Director Chambers? Okay, we don't see any questions. Thank you, Director Chambers. So at this point, I'm looking for a motion, please. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I move adoption of ordinance 2024-668, amending ordinance 2023-658, ordinance 2024-661, and ordinance 2024-662, amending the 2024 budget as presented.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 2024-668. Any comments, Deputy Mayor? Or no? Okay, so motion on the floor is moved to adopt ordinance 2024-668, amending ordinance 2023-658, ordinance 2024-661, and ordinance 2024-662, amending the 2024 budget as presented. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 6-0. Director Chambers, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving on to the main item for tonight, council vacancy interviews and selections, item, general business item 12.2, which is a appointment for the vacant council member position 4. So we have tonight, we had 10 candidates. 2 candidates have voluntarily withdrawn, so we now have just 8 candidates with us. 1 candidate, Mr. Jacobs, is joining us via Zoom. Is he, city clerk, is he ready to go? Okay, great, okay. So each council member has had the agenda, or excuse me, the application packages for all the candidates for nearly 1 week, so 6 full days, a chance to review and read the agenda, or read the applications and study the material, the resumes, and so on. So the first thing we're going to do, and everybody got the process that we're going to do tonight, so I'll just review the process really quickly before we start. The first thing we're going to do tonight is before we do any interviews, we're going to each take a vote. Each council member has a ballot, paper ballot. We'll vote. Any candidate not receiving a vote will not move on to the next step. Any candidate who does receive a vote will go on to the interview stage. So the interview guidelines are basically as follows. Each candidate will receive a series of 7 questions. While the candidates that have moved on are being interviewed, we would ask the other candidates to wait in the front conference room. And Director Fitzgibbons is up there and she'll keep you company. And then we'll call you one at a time, depending on how many there are, to interview here at the podium by the council members. We'll each take a turn asking questions until we go around. You'll get 2 minutes to answer each question. And the order of answering questions will be determined by a random drawing that the city clerk is going to facilitate when we get to that point. After the interviews, we'll again have another vote via paper ballot, and any candidate not receiving a vote will not continue on. Following that, we'll move on to a point where we can make motions, so a candidate, or a council member rather, can motion to appoint somebody or remove somebody from the pool until we've gone through this process and narrowed down the field, and to the point where hopefully we select a candidate, a person to fill the vacancy. And we're going to continue that, but we're only going to continue that to a certain point. If we end up not filling the vacancy tonight, we'll come back at a future meeting and finish the process. So before I start this process, I will ask any candidate, if you have a question about the process, raise your hand real quick if you do before we start. Should be pretty straightforward. And City Clerk, can you monitor the, Mr. Jacobs online if in case he raises his hand? Yeah, let us know. Okay. All right, so with that, each council member has a ballot in front of them. The city clerk put them out at the beginning of the evening. So put your name on there and put the person you want to see advance to the next round, please. City clerk will collect the ballots.
All right. So Andrew Jacobs received 2 votes, so he will move forward. Candidate Allison Sweeney received 1 vote, so she will move forward. Candidate Jim Quigg received a vote. Candidate Ed Flash received a vote. And candidate Chris Villasenor received a vote. So that is all but, let me get my list here. Jennifer McAleer, Amy Donaldson, and Claudia Hershey did not receive any votes.
Thank you, City Clerk. Just to reiterate, candidates Jacobs, Quigg, Villasenor, Sweeney, and Flash. We'll move forward. Okay, so would you, you'll put their names in a hat, correct? And- All right, great. For those candidates who were not selected to move forward, we absolutely thank you for your interest in the City Council. And we encourage you that if you continue to be interested, next year is an election year. There are 4 positions up here on this dais. So the empty position, my position, the deputy mayor, and Councilmember Charbonneau's positions will be up for election, re-election, as the case may be. So in May, I don't know the exact date, is the filing week to apply to be a candidate. So you can look on the King County website, election website, to get the exact dates to determine when you can apply for the next year. So we encourage you to do that. Even if you do not move on ultimately, we encourage you to continue to be interested to be a council member. You have a question? Go ahead.
Since Mr. Jacobs is online, should he go first since he can hear everybody else? And I'm assuming the reason people are going back there is so they can't hear what other people say.
Good point. Can he be muted or turned off? No.
Well, he could turn his off, but it's a good thing.
I got you. Okay. Well, without any objection, then
I'm happy to mute myself if that's okay.
I think without any, no council objections, we'll determine the order. Mr. Jacobs will go first, and then we'll determine the order based on your drawing. Okay, for the next 4. Please draw. Yep. Drum roll.
Who will go second as Edward Flash? Followed by Miss Allison Sweeney. Number 4 will be Jim Quigg. And then followed up with Chris Villasenor.
Okay. Thank you. So candidates Quigg, Villasenor, Sweeney, and Flash, if you wouldn't mind going with Director Fitzgibbon. She's got fun games and puzzles for you then in our waiting room, in our green room. Don't sing too loud so that the rest of us can focus. I don't know if there's cookies. Yeah. Okay. So every candidate or every council member should have the questions in front of them. So we're going to go around. I'll ask the first question. The deputy mayor will just go right around in a circle. So we're going to ask all 7 questions of the candidate before we bring the next candidate back. Okay, any questions from the council? Okay. Mr. Jacobs, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for being part of the process tonight. So we're going to ask you a series of questions. You have 2 minutes, and the city clerk's going to time it for us. And, you can take less than that if you wanted to. So the first question, tell us briefly about your background, involvement in the Newcastle community, and why you want to serve on the council.
First of all, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with all of you tonight. I apologize for not being able to be there in person. I had a death in the family in Kansas City. Talking to you from a hotel room right now. I have been in Newcastle for over 30 years with the family. I have 3 children. My wife and I have been married for 42 years. Really have enjoyed and continue to enjoy living in Newcastle. And in Olympus, which is where we live. I thought it was time in my life and my career to get more involved with both the area that we live in Newcastle and the opportunity to be on the city council. So when the opportunity came about, I did watch the last meeting. It inspired me to take some action personally, and I thought it was time to look at the opportunity in front of me to be on the council. You obviously all have my resume. I've been in the business community here locally in Seattle for many years. I'm from Kansas City originally, moved to Newcastle from Bothell, when I got transferred up here with Costco, and have been basically in Newcastle most of the additional time in the area. So, really looking forward to the opportunity, regardless of what happens tonight. I'm on the now on the Olympus HOA board. Looking forward to doing that as well, and looking forward to just in general being more involved with the community.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Jacobs. I actually also lived in Kansas City for 4 years. I went to UMKC.
Nice.
Yeah. And I used to work for Sprint, so you must be familiar with the Sprint campus there.
I'm I'm not at the airport now, but earlier in the evening I was about 5 minutes from what used to be the Sprint campus.
Yeah. So my question to you is, what do you see as the role of a council member, and how have you prepared for this position?
So I looked through just some personal information to see some of the notes from what I perceive as what a council member is responsible for, including legislation and policy, representation, oversight, obviously community engagement and collaboration. I thought those were areas in most cases, because primarily my time at Costco and since, working with groups of people, working in different communities, getting to know other areas of the country and the Seattle area. Look, we have a vibrant community in Newcastle. I think it's growing from what I can gather from looking at notes and talking to other people in the community. I think it's the job of the city council, amongst all of those other things, to really ensure that we are engaged with the community, we represent the community properly, we understand what the community's looking for. We have a very diverse community, obviously, so it's important to understand all the different facets of that and so on. Being involved with community events, participating in upcoming events in Seattle, in Newcastle, obviously. So, and I think it's also being able to work with the rest of the city council in general. I think it's important that the council members are able to communicate properly, get along, and really look out for the best interest of the community.
Hello, Mr. Jacobs. Thank you so much for applying and being engaged. Appreciate your effort there. I'm also a lifelong fan of the Costco rotisserie chicken, so thank you for your work there.
Thank you. One of my personal claim to fame is at Costco, so.
Awesome. So the question I have for you is, how do you approach decision-making when working with others who have different perspectives?
Well, the first thing I try to do, both in my business career and my personal life, is really understand what the objective is of the group, my family, my friends, certainly the groups that I consult with now, then gathering the information to really understand what the next steps look like at that point, what our options could be moving forward, then typically evaluate those options, listen to everybody else's comments based on those options, and really look at the mutual goals of what we're trying to accomplish, regardless of what part we're doing that in business, the council, my family, and then really looking to do some strong implementation based on the consensus of the group. look, there's always going to be disagreements on things. There's always going to have groups of people or people in general that have a differing opinion. And I think you have to keep really, an open mind to what everybody has to say and really look forward from there. And at some point, there's a common ground. It may take time to get there, but at some point, I think, regardless of everybody's opinion, you can get to a consensus that makes sense for both the group and the community.
Councilmember Burford, you're up.
Hello, welcome to the interview. My family, we have been Costco's long-time members. We love Costco's. Thank you. Newcastle, like many communities, can face diverse issues that challenge unity among residents and council members. How would you approach situations where there is significant division, and how would you work to foster collaboration and constructive dialogue among different viewpoints?
I have to say we do live in a very diverse community, and I think it's important to acknowledge that fact. And I think it's important that everybody involved with that situation acknowledges the fact that we are diverse, and I think it's very important to listen to that diversity and really take note of what everybody has to say in the community, because we are very diverse. I think there needs to be a greater, that's probably not the right word, I think there needs to be very open communication to get to the common goals of the community. And I think even though we're a diverse community, I think you can build enough relationships within the community to bridge that divide or gap in trying to navigate the different relationships and goals and so on and so forth. I think long term, I think everybody, not only sitting in this room, but that has been involved with the city, wants the best for the community. And even though there's varying opinions, and we may not always agree with everything, I think everybody would agree that we want what's best for Newcastle and really look at long-term solutions that make sense for a diverse community in the future. I think we need to be patient. I think we need to be humble, and I think we need to be optimistic about what the future looks like and being able to participate with a very diverse community that may have a lot of differing opinions.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Jacobs. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
The next question is, what makes Newcastle special, and what do you think is the most important issue facing the city today?
I think what makes Newcastle special is people like all of us living here and building, again, I've been here for over 30 years. We've come a long way in 30 years, obviously. When we moved in, there was nothing behind our house. So the community's grown. I think we've learned a lot. I think we have some key issues that have to be addressed, obviously, but including making sure that we continue to grow properly, that the community is taken care of properly, that we have equality in the community, and of course, everybody talks about safety and being able to live in a safe community. So I think there are things that we have to focus on, but we have to continue to grow as a city and be open to what that looks like and new opportunities to help the city grow and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you for replying, Mr. Jacobs. Are there groups in Newcastle whose voices aren't being heard? How would you engage them?
I think we have to engage those in three different ways. I think we have to be transparent as to what our objectives are. I think we have to respect those people and those opinions. And I think we have to be fair and equitable about how we talk and discuss and move forward with those particular groups or people that have opinions and so on. We really have to build trust with the community before you can do anything properly. Make clear what our priorities are. Look for, I have to be honest with you, I think it would be very important for those people in the community to respect all of us as council members and fellow residents and just fellow humans. Have to be inclusive. And we really have to encourage the community at large to participate in the things that we are doing. So making those potentially more diverse, being open to more diverse opportunities and suggestions and so on and so forth.
Okay, last question, back to me here is, how do you manage disagreement? And if the council makes a decision you disagree with, how would you reconcile having to support it?
Well, there's a few things that I do in my business career and currently in the consulting work I do in the food and beverage industry. And I think it's one of the main things I try to live by is keep an open mind as to what people have to say. I try to not be emotional about anything. It's not personal for the most part, I believe. I think you have to acknowledge what those disagreements are. Again, be respectful to the other council members, the other people that may be speaking at a council meeting. Try to find some common ground in the process. I try to be flexible. I try to understand, really what the conflict is, what was the basis of the conflict, potentially seek opinions from outside interests that might guide some thought processes and so on. And sometimes you just have to plain old read the room, understand what people in the room are really looking for, what their objective is if they're proposing something and so on. And I got to tell you, I think there's three things that really can guide not only in business but certainly the city itself. I think we have to be have empathy towards the situation. I think we have to be patient in understanding what the situation is. And I think we really have to be accountable for what we do and really make sure that whatever those disagreements are, we really have done our due diligence and make sure that we really find out if they might even be in a disagreement or really find out the way around the situation.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. That concludes our questions for you. We're going to call on the next person now. You can stay on the line. Fine, you've already completed your role. So city manager, we're going to text. Next person was Ed Flash. Text Aaron to come. All right. Yes, 3 seconds, sir. He's out, right? Come on up to the podium, Ed.
Turn the mic on.
Turn the mic on, Ed. Okay, Ed, thank you for your interest in becoming a candidate. We're going to ask you a series of questions. We're going to go around robin here on the council, and I'll start off. First question we have for you is, tell us briefly about your background, your involvement in the Newcastle community, and why you want to serve on the city council.
Sure. First of all, I hope you guys asked me.
Oh, and I'm sorry, by the way, the city clerk is 2 minutes per question. Should
Okay,
be-
perfect. So first of all, I hope you guys asked me what my favorite ice cream flavor is. I love that question on here. So, so Ed Flash, I moved to Newcastle in 2006. I live in the Milepost neighborhood. I have a lovely wife of 30 plus years. I have 3 kids. They all live on the East Coast. They all grew up in Newcastle and went through the Issaquah School District. So they were raised here in Newcastle. In terms of my background, I grew up on Mercer Island. So I grew up in this area, moved away for a few years, came back. I attended the University of Washington, received a degree in accounting. I also have an MBA with an emphasis in finance. I have worked for, from a professional perspective, I have worked for a variety of different companies, including those in the banking industry, light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing. And for the last 20 plus years, I've worked in the healthcare area. I currently work for a nonprofit organization called HealthPoint, and we cater to those, or providing medical care to those less fortunate. So we have a variety of clinics in the King County area. In terms of my involvement in the community, I have been on the Community Activities Commission for about 7 years. I have also been the co-president of the Newcastle Arts Council for about the same amount of time, and have been instrumental in building up that organization and creating quite a few community activities. And last year we did about 70 or so touch points with the community. So it's a very active organization here in Newcastle. Why I want to be on the city council. Obviously, I've been very involved in Newcastle. I love living here. It's a wonderful place, and I want to continue to support the community as best I can.
Thank you for applying it. I think we have 2 things in common. I also have MBA finance, and I run a nonprofit. So my question to you, Ed, is what do you see as the role of a council member, and how have you prepared for this position?
Yeah, so preparing for this position, as you know, or as I just explained, I've been quite involved in the Newcastle community from a city of Newcastle perspective. Attended city council meetings. Of course, I've been on the CAC, so I kind of have an idea of how the city runs and what you all do as council members and staff. And I certainly appreciate all that you do from that perspective. I've also been, as I've mentioned, involved in the community, so I know quite a few people in Newcastle. That includes both citizens and the business community, and from an organizational perspective. So the role of a city council member, first and foremost, is to listen, right? The city council member needs to have a pulse on what's going on in the community, be present in the community, understand what our stakeholders want or need, more importantly in the community. And by stakeholders, I don't necessarily mean just the citizens and residents of Newcastle, but when you talk about stakeholders, there's people like the business community, those people that shop in Newcastle, those people that frequent the other organizations and places in Newcastle, go to Lake Bourne Park, but live in Renton or live in Bellevue. I often tell this story. I have an individual that I know that works in Redmond, or used to work in Redmond. He would travel through Newcastle to go to his home in Renton, but Newcastle was where he shopped. It was his library. So it's not just the people that live here. So listen, make sure we understand what the needs of the community are. be a good steward of the resources that we have available is probably another important thing. So we are in control of the city budget. So that would be it.
Thank you for applying it, and thank you. I know how hard you work for the city and all your different roles. So the question I have is, how do you approach the decision-making when working with others who have different perspectives?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I listen, and I want to make sure that I understand an issue and understand what is involved in an issue before I make a decision. Some people would say that's actually one of my faults, is that I am a very analytical person, and I try and get every perspective, or at least understand all the perspectives before I will actually make a decision. So I'm not very hasty about making a decision just on a whim, and I like to think about what every perspective is. So I would put that to use in the city council and in pretty much everything I do in terms of trying to get as much perspective as I can of different opinions and different ideas before we come to any sort of conclusion or make any sort of decision. So obviously a lot of people have different opinions and different perspectives, and I would want to make sure that I understand those before we make a decision or come to an agreement on something.
Thanks for being here, Ed. Appreciate you applying. The next question is about navigating divisiveness. Newcastle, like many communities, can face divisive issues that challenge unity among residents and council members. How would you approach situations where there is significant division, and how would you work to foster collaboration and constructive dialogue among differing viewpoints?
Yeah. There's the old saying that, you get a group of people together and if there's 5 people, sometimes you have 10 different opinions. So people have different opinions, and it kind of goes back to the question that I just answered, and that is really making sure that we listen, trying to be level-headed about, again, listening to them, not jumping to any sort of conclusions, making sure that we get all sorts of perspectives before any sort of decision gets made. So I would like to think that I could build relationships and build partnerships with every single person and every person in the community, on the council, whomever it is, and hopefully that would lead to then some collaboration and not divisiveness among the groups and such.
Thank you, Ed, for applying, and I really appreciate all you have done for our city. And so now my question is about the key issues for Newcastle. What makes Newcastle special, and what do you think is the most important issue facing the city today?
Yeah, so I love the word special because it implies that there's something really good about Newcastle, right? And I truly believe that, right? I think this is a great place to live. I think it's a great place to call my home, and I think it's a great place that other people can call their homes, even if they, think that Newcastle is unique and Newcastle is special for differing reasons. So I would point out a few of the things that are unique in this community, right? Certainly it's the proximity to other larger markets. So that would be Renton, Bellevue, Seattle. That's why I think a lot of people live here, is because of its proximity to those areas, but then you also don't have to live in those areas. It's very small, it's very manageable. The people here are incredibly friendly, incredibly supportive of the community, incredibly appreciative of everything that we do as a community and we have as a community. We don't have everything, and those are things that I think we can work on as a community, is filling some of the gaps of things that we don't have today. But all in all, I'd happen to agree that Newcastle is a very special place to live. What is the most important issue in my mind is economic sustainability. We are not going to survive unless we do something about making sure that we have enough money and resources to continue to provide the services that this community demands. That's the key, and that's the key role that I think the council needs to play over the next few years, is making sure that we put ourselves in a place where we can provide those services that the community demands, the community wants, and the community needs. And whether that's
Thank you, Ed, for applying. Are there groups in Newcastle whose voices aren't being heard? How would you engage them?
Yeah, first of all, I think the role of a city council member is really to be present in the community, and present in every aspect of the community. So whether that's the different ethnic groups that are in the community, different living arrangements that are in the community, different age groups in the community, different anything that creates the uniqueness of Newcastle, in that we have a very diverse community. But it's important for the city council and city council members to be part of that entire aspect of the community, and to help build the community through making those groups and different factions of the community feel like this is their community. That's a super important role of the council, is to make sure that to get out there and be part of the different aspects of our community that make us all unique and create diversity in the community.
Okay, Ed, thank you. Last question. How would you manage disagreement? And if the council makes a decision you disagree with, how would you reconcile having to support it?
Yeah, so I thought a lot about this, and I'm gonna give a example of what I see as how I would handle that, okay? So pretend like I'm a US congressman and I'm sitting in Washington, DC, and there's a vote that comes up to the Congress that says we're gonna ban this is a very controversial issue, we're gonna ban abortion. And I am very pro-choice. I'm gonna vote against that bill. If it passes, then how I'm gonna approach that is I'm gonna say to my constituents that here's the law, and something passed Congress, and we have to support that law, because that is something that was brought forth and was passed as the law of the land. Now, there's gonna be a rally in Washington, DC the next Saturday that is pro-choice. Am I gonna be there, front in line, doing that? By all means, yes. I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna speak, and I'm gonna be supportive of pro-choice, even though the Congress voted not to do that. So as an individual, I feel like I have a right to do that. As a council member, I feel like I have the obligation to the community to say, okay, that's the law, and we have to adhere to that law. But as an individual, I'm gonna do what I feel is best. Now, with that said, I want to listen to the community and I want to hear what they have to say. But when push comes to shove, if I feel a certain way, then I'm gonna act that way, but within the law of the land.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
That
Thank you
concludes
for
our
the opportunity.
questions. You may
Appreciate it.
have a seat, and please text the next person, which is, sorry, Allison Sweeney. Oh. Councilmember Sherlock wants to know what your favorite ice cream is, Ed.
It would be chocolate.
Chocolate, okay. Now she can sleep at night, knowing that.
Sorry, it's really big.
Okay, Allison, thank you for coming. Thank you for applying. So we're going to ask you a series of questions, and we'll each take a turn as a council member asking the questions, and I'll start off. So the first question is, tell us briefly about your background, involvement in the Newcastle community, and why you want to serve on the council.
Thank you. I've had kind of a really diverse professional career. I started out of college being hired by Anderson Consulting, now known as Accenture, as a business consultant. After that, I started my retail career, where I started at Marshall Fields, managing a team of 120 people. I moved on to, when we moved to the Northwest, I started working for L'Oreal Designer Fragrance Group and was the account executive for the Pacific Northwest, and then moved on to Nordstrom, where I was hired as a replenishment buyer, buying for over 100 stores. I left my professional career to spend time with my children and really enjoyed volunteering in their activities and being a part of their lives in that way. I also got to use a lot of my professional skills. I spent 5 years on the Newcastle PTSA Executive Board. Sorry, I spent a year as the co-chair for the Newcastle PTSA auction, where we brought $230,000 for the Newcastle PTSA. I have been a Girl Scout troop leader for 2 troops for over 10 years of experience, earning my girls silver and bronze awards. And for the last 2 years, I have been the service unit manager for the Girl Scouts of Western Washington, which means I'm responsible for troop leaders in our area and giving them support and direction. We also reinstated our summer camp in 2022, and I was the co-director and instrumental in that as well. Through Frosty Barrel, we have also had the opportunity of helping schools, clubs, organizations fundraise. We've participated in the Newcastle tree lighting. We've participated with the Art Council and become members of the Chamber of Commerce, where I now sit on the executive board. Bringing all of those things together really brings together my professional career of managing budgets, forecasting expenses, executing events, partnering with the community, and with my volunteer experience of working with families, I think I'd be a really great fit for the City Council.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you for applying. I know you have teenage daughters. Be assured, I have one too. This job is much easier than handling teenagers.
Thank you for that encouragement.
So my question to you is, what do you see as the role of a council member, and how have you prepared for this position?
Thank you. I think in the most simplest form, the council is a legislative organization with their most important activity being approving an annual budget. They work with the city manager and represent all of Newcastle. I had the honor of running for city council in 2023. And at that time, I took the opportunity to prepare myself for that role by meeting with Jeff Bronze and Mark Hoffman and Scott Pingle. It was really important to me to learn more about how our city runs, to understand their departments, and to understand what my role on the dais would be and how it affects each of them. Even though that election resulted in one of the closest elections in Newcastle history, with me earning almost half of the vote in the election, I've continued to stay very, very engaged in 2024. I've continued to attend meetings. I've continued to participate in discussion. I've continued to represent our small businesses. I've joined the Chamber of Commerce on the executive board, and I've continued to take time to learn and make a difference in our community.
Thank you for applying, Allison, and thank you for being engaged with our community. So the question I have is, how do you approach decision-making when working with others who have different perspectives?
Sorry, I've been sick since Thanksgiving, so. I actually really enjoy being a part of problem solving and group discussions. I find it really rewarding. I've sat in a lot of boards since I was in council, since I was probably in middle school, and engaged in a lot of conversations over the years. I would probably say that when I was younger, it was really important to me to have my voice be heard and to always talk and to always have an opinion. As I've grown and as I've sat in different boards and worked with a lot of diverse groups of people, I always begin now with listening. I think that when we come to a meeting, we've probably done some research, We've probably thought a little bit ahead of time or talked to other people or looked at some data to get an idea of what is going to be discussed. And you can't help but form some kind of opinion when you're walking into the room. But I believe that listening to other people is a part of gathering that data and a part of gathering that information, because they might be looking at the same information but interpreting it differently, or they're looking at different data and they're bringing a different set of information to the table. So I really truly believe that listening is one of the most important things that I can do. If I have something more to offer to move our conversation forward, I don't hesitate to speak. I think you all probably know that by now. But I also don't have to talk just to hear myself speak. I want to be productive.
Thank you for applying, Alison. And my question is about the
All right, we're going to go out of order here. The next one is about navigating divisiveness. So Newcastle, like many communities, can face divisive issues that challenge unity among residents and council members. How would you approach situations where there is significant division, and how would you work to foster collaboration and constructive dialogue among differing viewpoints?
I think that's a really great question, and thank you for asking. I think the reality is that on city council or any board such as this one, there are 7 individual people who have been elected to represent an entire community, to represent 13,000 community. We all have different lives. We come from different places. We have different amounts of education. It would be expected to me that we have disagreements, that we don't agree on everything, that is a normal part of life. But in my relationships that I have with my husband and with my kids and with my friends and my business partners, the key to my healthy relationships is listening and seeking to understand. Because if I can understand where somebody else is coming from, it's a lot easier for me to engage in conversation. If I understand what your goal is, and then recognize that maybe we're sitting in a room and we're working towards 2 different goals, that's a problem. We're never going to find any kind of common ground, right? So it's really important to understand where somebody's coming from so that we can finally find our way to one goal. And we may not get there the same way, but at least we've started a conversation to find out how we can move forward on that path. Also, I can't possibly know everything. I realize that. So it's really important to me that council members and the city and community who feel that they don't agree with me feel comfortable emailing me. I can always learn. I'm always happy to find a place of peace and meet in the middle. And I have no problem reaching out to fellow council members and trying to bring our 7 different voices to one common solution.
Thank you, Alison. So back to this question, key issues for Newcastle, and what makes Newcastle a special place, and what do you think is the most important issue facing the city today?
This is my favorite question because as a small business owner, I think that the treasure in our community is our downtown corridor and our small businesses. We have basic services that we can offer to our residents so they don't have to travel far, but we also offer organic massage therapy. We also offer sushi. We have 2 amazing Mexican restaurants. We have outstanding Asian cuisine. We have a local produce stand, and if I might say, the best ice cream on the east side. As one of the local business owners, I would have to stress the importance of the relationship between the city and our local small business community. When I opened Frosty Barrel when my husband and I opened Frosty Barrel in 2020, I hadn't had a lot of experience with the city council. I think I had spoken at a city council meeting once before. But since then, we have a unique opportunity in my family where most business owners are still working at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. My husband and I have a very different makeup for how we run our business and our other businesses. So I have done, I think, a part of trying to bridge that gap between the city council and our small businesses. I've been active in council discussion. I've been part of local issues. I've advocated for our business community. Last year, I sat on the Economic and Community Development Committee, and I joined the Newcastle Chamber of Commerce Executive Board. Many of our small businesses make a lot of our events possible, and approximately 30% of our city's tax revenue comes from our small businesses. When our small businesses succeed, our town succeeds.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Allison, for applying.
Thanks.
My question to you is, are there groups in Newcastle whose voices aren't being heard, and how would you engage them?
I'm actually going to piggyback on my last answer and say that I think an important voice that is missing right now on City Council is the voice of our business community. Most local businesses, like I said, can't attend in the evening. And when was the last time we had a local business owner on City Council? I don't know the answer to that question. So I think that is an important viewpoint that we're missing. If there are other voices that are out there that aren't being heard, how are we supposed to know, right? I identify in different groups all the time. Everybody else in our community self-identifies as different groups depending on what the issue is that they're facing. How can we know all of the groups that are out there that aren't feeling represented? So the solution that I think that it is the best thing to do is that we need to be visible in our community. Visibility allows us to be recognizable and approachable. The things that I can do are I can listen. I can reply to emails when they're sent. I can respect those who come and speak at public comment. And we should be where the people are. We can't rely on them always to come to us. So it's our responsibility to meet them where they are. And that means participating in city events. That means volunteering in our community. That might mean while we're at those events, we're wearing name tags so that people are recognizing us and finding us approachable to come speak to.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Last question. How do you manage disagreement? And if the council makes a decision you disagree with, how would you reconcile having to support it?
That's a really good question. In this room, all kinds of decisions are made. There's all kinds of votes that are taken, and there's a lot of discussion that happens. Some of them require a free and fair vote. And when that happens, and I vote one way, but the vote goes the other, it is my responsibility to honor and respect that result. There are other discussions that happen in this room at the same time. And my responsibility belongs to the people and to my conscience. As a human being, it's impossible for me to disagree and have an opinion in 1 minute and 30 seconds later, all of a sudden agree with something. That is not anything that anybody in this room is capable of doing. If you disagree with somebody, you disagree with the point that's being made, that's how you feel. That feeling doesn't go away 30 seconds later because a vote is taken. But what my responsibility is to do is I might disagree, but I have to respect those that I'm disagreeing with. I may not like the decision, I may not like how it ends up, but my job is to respect the people who may disagree with me. And I think that that is what our community expects us to do.
Okay, thank you very much, Allison. That concludes our questions for you. City Manager, next up, I believe, is Jim Quigg. Yeah, come right on up to the podium.
There were cookies back there.
There were cookies, great. No wonder
I
everybody's,
insisted on cookies, and Aaron got us cookies, so.
no wonder everybody's taking so long to get down here.
Yes. The pizza shows up in 10 minutes. It's going to be great.
We're going to wait for one more minute. Councilmember Charbonneau is,
That's okay. I'll just sit here nervously. Go ahead. Take your time. Paul, come on. TMI, buddy. TMI.
okay, Jim, thank you for applying. We're going to ask you a series of questions. We're going to go around the podium here, and we each take a turn asking your questions. You'll have 2 minutes to answer each question, and the city clerk has a timer going on.
I
So,
was told it was 10 minutes. I'm just
yeah, you were misinformed. Okay, the first question. Tell us briefly about your background, involvement in the Newcastle community, and why you want to serve on the council.
Thank you. Great question, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Sun, Ari, Tom, Pratima, Paul, even though you showed up late. Thank you, everybody who's here tonight. I love it. This is the most people we've seen here lately. I showed up late tonight. Hi, Scott. I showed up late tonight because I was trying to wrap up my annual HOA meeting. That's why I came in last second. I was saying, shut up, we got to hang up. I got to go meet with somebody. Wasn't more of a priority. It's just I'm a busy guy, right? Because I love to do a lot of this community service stuff that means I don't get to watch a lot of Netflix films, but I enjoy it. It's fulfilling for me to do this kind of stuff. Before I was doing the HOA meeting, I was at Dimmitt Middle School where my daughter and Risden were playing them in basketball, cheering on Risden. We won by like 7 points. That was pretty cool. And I was the fundraising VP there, just trying to help them raise some money so the kids can get what they need. Soon I'll be sitting in where you're at as the vice chair of the planning commission because it's exciting to kind of help the city grow, over the next 10 years. We're working on the comp plan. And the last time I was in front of a microphone, well, actually, the last time I was dressed as an elf. But before that, the last time I had a microphone, I was giving a eulogy for Tony Ventrella. And I quoted him, who quoted MLK, who once said, we may all come here on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. I love that quote, and I think that's the way I look at this job, your job, maybe my job one day, is to help everybody understand we're in this together. We may have different skin colors and genders and all the other stuff, money, age, but we all live in Newcastle, and we all want what's best for it, and I just want to help it, be better every day. So that's why I applied.
Thank you, Jim. I think you will make a better elf than the one in that Hollywood movie.
Thanks.
So my question to you is, what do you see as the role of a council member, and how have you prepared for this position?
So I got a story about that. On the planning commission, we're trying to, as I said, work on the comp plan. Step one, what should we do? How should we change it? What do people want to see? What direction should we grow in? What's the priority? And Charlie, our chair, put together a penny poll with all these different options, okay? And people put their penny if they care about transportation, if they care about utilities, if they care about the trails. But I would say about half the people will come up to us while we're talking to folks at the arts fairs and all this stuff that Ed puts together. And they kept on asking about public safety. And we didn't have a jar for them to put their penny in. And for a while, I was told, well, we can incorporate that into this element. It doesn't really fit well. I said, that's BS. I said, we've had half the people come up and ask about something. We don't even have a jar for it. So I think that my role will be not to insist on a jar, but metaphorically speaking, to listen to what people want. I think people in your position, not you specifically, but once you get seated there while the rest of us are here, you kind of feel high and mighty and you think that you know better. Oh, I already know the issues. Trust me, I got it figured out. Things change, and people's priorities change. My mind has changed sitting just where you are, listening to people right here talking. And so I think our role is to shut up and ask lots of questions and meet them where they're at. Some it's on social media, some it's, in the apartments. It's in neighborhoods we don't live in. It's going to events that, take our time, put away the Netflix, go out, meet with them. But I think that's my role, is to just meet with people as much as possible And when they start talking, ask lots of questions, draw out the stories, and hopefully represent them as best as I can when the vote comes around.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for being involved with the city and applying. So how do you approach decision-making when working with others who have different perspectives?
I just surround myself with yes people. Paul, is that? No. So, another story. When I got on the planning commission, and Erin Fitzgibbons, who's down there with some excellent cookies, I might add for the fourth time, she said we're going to do a lot of housing stuff, and my job was to work on the housing element of the comp plan rewrite, and better understand, just the neighborhoods and what the city is made up of, and where the traffic is, and what the buildings look like, and I didn't know what some of them meant, and so guess what? We went for a drive, Paul. I got in the car with Amy Dantzler and Scott Marsh, and we went for a stroll, and it was delightful. It was a neat way, and they had different perspectives, not a lot different, I mean, frankly, but they had different concerns from their neighborhoods, people they interacted with, and that's just one example of where you just meet with people, right? Decision-making with people that have different perspectives is critical to good decision-making. I almost killed myself trying to put up the damn Christmas tree last week because I had an idea for, putting ladders together, and the owner said, Jim, no, I'm not gonna get sued by having you fall down. So we got together and we figured out different ways of getting things together. Our HOA, we constantly battle because we have different perspectives, their side of the street, my side of the street, what their schedule looks like. But Paul, I just think the best thing to do, it's not a problem to have different perspectives. It's a blessing, it's an asset. So I would just invite the different perspectives and listen and listen and listen and ask questions. Thank you. Who's next?
I'm next. Thanks for applying, Jim. Appreciate you being
You
here.
bet.
So this question is about navigating divisiveness.
Oh, boy.
Newcastle, like many communities, can face divisive issues that challenge unity among residents and council members. How would you approach situations where there is significant division? And how would you work to foster collaboration and constructive dialogue among differing viewpoints?
That's a big reason why I applied, honestly. This is not good for my marriage to be up here right now. This is not good for my family life. This is not good for my job, career opportunities. But we moved here a decade ago, and I got, nobody came to my door. Some cute kids came and said hi, but nobody welcomed me when we came here. And so I started a welcome committee, and before I knew it, I was on the HOA and running it. I think that if there's divisiveness, that's just an opportunity for conversation. I think one of my favorite sayings is people do not care what you know until they know that you care. And I think that if you don't connect with somebody so they feel like you really give a shit, can I say that, Jeff? Oh, okay. They're not going to listen to you, and you're certainly not going to change their mind. And so listen and sincerely stop talking to yourself and trying to debate them in the back of your brain. When they're saying what they think, just listen to what they have to say. And if you can't give them a kind response in the moment, then just say thank you. That, I'm going to think about that. And I think you take it back, and hopefully, how many of us have woken up or in the shower had a different perspective just because we heard somebody say something, right? So that's how I would handle divisiveness, is to embrace it and hopefully find a way to build common ground with that person. Thank you, Paul.
I had a wonderful time attending the
Thank
Christmas tree lighting. I think you're the best elf. Thank you
That's
for
2
engaging
votes.
our community,
Caldwell
Jim.
Farrell.
Yeah, thank you for applying. Yeah. So my question for you is the key issue for Newcastle. What makes Newcastle special? And what do you think is the most important issue facing our city today?
Folks like you, son, you're everywhere. Thank you. Thank you for coming to the tree lighting. Thank you for going to the Coleman after the tree lighting. I don't know how, there's 4 of you out there, I'm pretty sure. That was supposed to be a joke. No laughs, great. What makes Newcastle special? Well, we already answered this question. Frankly, I know what makes Newcastle special for the Quigg family. I know why we moved here from Seattle. But we did a survey, is it 13,000 residents now-ish? We surveyed them, and 500-ish replies, and people like the small town feel. It was by far and away the easiest answer. They said that over and over again. And I think that is neat. I think that's special, and I love that about this city. I love the peaceful trails. I love that you can go into the Safeway and see friends and neighbors, and it's just neat, right? I went, you know, I didn't go to a big school, so I got to see people over and over again, which kind of made it fun, and that's kind of the way Newcastle feels. We are going to grow, though. I think our biggest challenge is growth going forward. I'm honored to be on the Planning Commission and be on kind of the front lines of that challenge. I think that there's state laws and county rules and, you know, all this requirements on us to grow, and so we're going to grow. Come hell or high water, people are going to move here. The question is, how are we going to help that man do it in a smart way? How are we going to help the city manager provide guidance for his amazing staff, you know, to do public director work and all that kind of stuff? So I'm excited about the growth of this city. You know, how are we going to invite people to keep the character of Newcastle, but also allow people to move here? It's very, very expensive to live here right now. How are we going to address that issue with middle housing and such? There's a million things I want to say to that, but that's the gist of my answer, is how the biggest challenge for Newcastle is growing in a safe, healthy, inviting way.
Thank you, Jim, for replying. My question is, are there groups in Newcastle whose voices aren't being heard, and how would you engage them?
Is my voice being heard, Tom? You good? All right, I love good for you. This guy calls me after meetings because my son and I did the AV for a meeting. God, I couldn't hear a thing they were saying. Well, Tom, okay, so I'm glad you're a self-starter, council member. I think an obvious answer from my perspective in trying to get people to attend softball events, basketball, 3-on-3, Newcastle Days basketball stuff, I could list off that sounds braggadocious, but trust me, I've tried to get people to come to events. It ain't easy in certain communities, one of which is the apartments. Those folks, there's like a wall. Literally, sometimes you can't you can't post notices, you can't knock on doors, you can't campaign, I suppose, or meet with them. That's tough. Right? There's a whole group, large swath of the city where you can't really talk to people and they're not really dialed in as much because they maybe haven't been here as long. They don't maybe plan to stay here as long. So I think folks not living in, in their own homes, I think are an opportunity for us to reach out more. Son, looking at you, folks in the Asian community, there's a couple Asian folks in this town I heard, right? And getting them engaged, my experience as an HOA, we changed Oktoberfest to the Mid-Autumn Festival. Is that what it's called? Yeah, the Chinese, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Just to get people engaged. And it worked. It worked. We had mooncakes, right? And so they came out and they joined us. So you have to make it fun and inviting for them, right? If we want to bring out the football fans, we do another Oktoberfest. But I switched it so we could get more folks from the Asian demographic to come out. And I think there's folks, in Regency and such that are in the elderly communities that we need to go to them more, right? They're not coming out. That's too hard for them. So I think we need to reach out to our elderly communities. That's 3 of 100 different communities I could think of that we need to just make more of an effort to, through being there and maybe through social media, reaching out to them and getting them to come to our events and feel part of our community. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, Jim, thank you. Last question for you tonight. How do you manage disagreement? And if the council makes a decision you disagree with, how would you reconcile having to support it?
I would storm out of the room. No. Sorry, too soon? Okay. I got a laugh. There we go. I finally got a laugh. Geez, I've been up here dying all night. I think handling disagreements on the council is going to be flippin' easy, right? It's going to be simple. Being with you guys and disagreeing on a council, because I've been doing it for years in a marriage, and we're still together, right? We don't agree on everything, but you wake up, it's a new day, and you keep moving forward. So there's going to be there's going to be battles I'm going to lose. I lose them every night up there in my house. And, I can't, like my daughter wanted an iPhone, a very expensive, unnecessary iPhone, and she wanted some stupid app called Snapchat on her iPhone. I said, that's dumb, that's a waste of money, we're not doing it. And we had a conversation about the topic, about the dynamics in the middle school ages for my daughter. And so that weekend, my daughter got an iPhone with Snapchat. And I couldn't complain about it or say, or be, negative about my wife to my kids. And I couldn't tell my son that, your sister's got something she doesn't deserve. I had to get on board, right? So I feel the same way here. If I lose a vote, it is what it is, Maybe I need to go on more car rides with somebody and kind of change their mind. But no, I'm pretty much a team player on the basketball court, in my house, and if I'm lucky enough to be with you guys.
Okay, Jim, thank you very much. That concludes our questions. You
Thank
may
you.
go ahead and have a seat. And last person, City Manager, text Chris Villasenor.
Good evening.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for your interest in the position, and thank you for coming. We're going to ask you a series of questions. We're going to take turns up here on the council dais, going around the rooms here. So first question, and you have 2 minutes for each answer. The city clerk has a buzzer. First question, tell us briefly about your background, involvement in the Newcastle community, and why you want to serve on the city council.
Thank you. My name is Chris Villasenor. I served as a city planning commissioner for a couple of years and served as a city council member in 2022 and 2023. I have lived in the community for 19 years and just have a deep desire to serve this community. I'm here tonight because I believe I can make a difference. I believe that I have made a difference. And I'm here to support the people who work hard in this community to make it more than just a place where people sleep when they're not working. I think Newcastle is more than that, and I believe that deeply in my heart, and that's why I've come back tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for applying, Chris. So my question to you is, what do you see as a role of a council member, and how have you prepared for this position?
I think the role of a city council member is to try to do the most good for the most people in this community. It's a difficult job to balance what people want and what people need with what we can provide. I think that is a huge challenge. It's something that requires some thought. It's something that requires someone who listens, someone who is in the community and is in contact with the people who they serve. We have a lot of ability to affect lives, and it's a very important role that I take very seriously. In my service, I believe that my record is strong in terms of my thoughtfulness and my ability to connect with the people that I'm serving. And I think, again, a deep desire to serve is what people need. I think that when you're talking about qualifications for this job, live in the community and care. I think if you can do both of those things, you can do this job, and I'm both.
Thank you, Chris, for your service, and thank you for applying. So the question I have is, how do you approach decision-making when working with others who have different perspectives?
I think the most important thing when you're working with others is that you listen. I think that that it's important to try to understand where people are coming from. Each of us has our own perspective on problems in terms of their priority and how you might solve them. But when you're trying to work together, the first thing you want to do is apply your own values and understand them deeply, and where they come from, and to work to do the same for the people that you're working with. What are their values? How did they come to those values? Do they oftentimes mesh? Not entirely, but a lot of times you're looking for that common ground, something to build on, right? I think that you can very easily hold each other away at arm's length based on ideology, when really what we want to do is find the common threads that we can build solutions with. And I believe that I've exemplified that in my service.
Okay, I'm next. Thanks for applying, Chris. So my question is about navigating divisiveness. Newcastle, like many communities, can face divisive issues that challenge unity among residents and council members. How would you approach situations where there is significant division, and how would you work to foster collaboration and constructive dialogue among differing viewpoints?
Yeah, I think that I addressed that in my previous answer, but I will go back into it. Problems in the community that are up to the city council to solve can be held at arm's length and looked at and discussed based on their merits. A lot of times we're looking for the same solution, but we're going to argue over how we get there. Should we zig? Should we zag? But if we can come together as a group and say, hey, this is a problem that needs solved, this is what the solution looks like, then, what's the problem now? The only problem now is, can we agree on how we solve that problem? And if we can take ideology out of it, then of course, solutions might present themselves. It's really a case of modern politics, really, that I don't think has a place here at local politics. We're here to solve problems for our community. We don't have to deal with all the things that the federal government has to deal with. We have to deal with the things that our community has to deal with. Oftentimes I hear people say, it's just 4 square miles of land. There's only 14,000 of us. Yeah, that's it. Let's worry about this much. Why are we worrying about so much? Let's solve the problems that Newcastle faces and let the rest of it take care of itself.
Thank you.
Thank you for applying, Chris. My question for you is key issues for Newcastle. What makes Newcastle special? And what do you think is the most important issue facing our city today?
What makes Newcastle special is the people. When it comes right down to it, it's houses, it's stores. But who lives in those houses and who runs those stores? And that's where the magic is. That's the most important part. That's what makes Newcastle special. If you've been to our local events, our community events, you see them. People enjoying themselves, people, again, who want to make Newcastle more than just a place they sleep when they're not working. That's where the Newcastle magic is. As far as our key issues, well, next year we have to pass a comprehensive plan. Big deal, heavy lift, lots of details. You need people who will roll up their sleeves and dig into it, who understand the city in a certain way that will allow them to contribute to that plan. We've also have financial sustainability, which has been the magic word for the last decade, as far as I can tell. Certainly a focal point for the councils that I served on. I don't believe that this council has made any proper headway to solving that for us as a community, and I think it's important that someone comes onto the council who is willing to take that by the horns. And again, I'm not interested in ideology. I'm interested in solving the problem, and that's my answer. Thanks, son.
Thank you, Chris, for applying. My question is, are there groups in Newcastle whose voices aren't being heard and how would you engage them?
Absolutely. And, well, first of all, we had 34% of the people in this community vote in the last election, which to me is sad, but whose fault is it? Is it their fault that they didn't vote? Or do they not feel connected to this community enough to want to make a decision and vote? There are people whose voices aren't being heard. For sure, 100%. But how do you get to them, right? We get to them where they live. You know, you go to the events where they are. You go to, you know, you volunteer in the community. You meet people. You have conversations with people in stores and on the street, people you recognize. Hi, I saw you there. You know, how do you feel about the city you live in? Would you like to make a difference? It could be as in-depth as running for city council, or it could be giving some time, or it could be voting and encouraging other people to vote, so that this city is more reflective of the way people feel and the issues that concern them. And it's our, and I say our, but what I mean is it's, you know, each of us to encourage each other to be more involved, to understand more deeply the city that we live in, because it makes so much more of a difference. You know, people get focused on big government and they forget that there are staff members and city council members here in Newcastle who are working to make their lives better, and they're not engaged. And there needs to be an effort, and that effort comes from each one of us, or anyone who's engaged in the community. We see a whole audience of people here tonight who are engaged enough to come out and listen to us speak. And maybe it's important for us as a group in this room to try to get our arms around the rest of us.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Last question tonight. How do you manage disagreement? And if the council makes a decision you disagree with, how would you reconcile having to support it?
You know, the voting body is the voting body. It makes a decision, and as a council member, you support that decision. I certainly wouldn't go door to door and ask people to vote against business that was done in this particular chamber. I mean, that, you know, that's, you know, I lost an election last fall, and here I am. I didn't quit. I'm here tonight because I want to serve. And as far as disagreements go, you accept the will of the body. It votes. You present your point of view. Council votes. Things pass. And ordinances pass. And action is taken. And you hope the will of the body, the will of the voting body, improves our community.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you. That concludes your questions. And Chris was the last person to be interviewed, so we've concluded our interviews of our 5 candidates. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to narrow down the candidate pool possibly. So I personally took a million pages of notes, so I'm going to suggest that the council, we're going to take, it's 8:34 on that clock, we're going to take 3 to 4 minutes to evaluate. Personally, I'm going to do that because I have a lot of notes. So when that clock reaches 8:38, the city clerk will come back around and collect our ballots. Okay, City Clerk, we are ready.
I'm hurrying. Okay. We have 2 votes for Jim Quigg, 3 votes for Allison Sweeney, and 1 vote for Andrew Jacobs.
Okay, thank you, City Clerk. So looks like we've narrowed the field down from 5 people to 3 people. So as I mentioned earlier, the 2 people that did not advance, we thank you. First of all, Ed and Chris, thank you very much for applying. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to run for council next year, look at the King County Elections website for the filing week that will happen in May. I don't know the exact dates, and apply for one of the 4 positions that will be up for election, re-election, as so to speak. So, thank you. So now the 3 people that are left in our process, we're going to do, we're at step 4 in our process called motion to appoint. So at this point, any council candidate, or excuse me, any council member may make a motion, a second is not needed, to nominate either one person to appoint to the city council, or you can also motion to remove a person from the process. It takes 4 votes, obviously, to be successful in either direction. So, like I said, a motion does not require a second, must receive more than half of the votes, which is 4. If no candidate receives a majority after 3 rounds, because we're not going to do this all night, folks, the names of the finalists will be noted for future meetings and discussions. And as a note, any member of the city council can ask for an executive session at any time. However, we're probably not going to do that, but if they wanted to discuss qualifications. Okay, I'll open the floor. Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead.
Thank you. I move to appoint Allison Sweeney to the Newcastle City Council.
Okay, we have a motion to appoint Allison Sweeney to the city council. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No. Okay, vote is 3-3. So that one does not pass. Do I have any other?
Point of clarification.
Sure.
Are we allowing folks to speak to their motion, or we're just going rapid voting?
We're going to do the first round as kind of a rapid, and then the next round we'll take more detail and ask for positions, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, so any other motions that I have on the floor? Is there a question?
I guess I don't understand what you mean by first round. Was that the first round?
So if nobody else has a motion to make, right, I don't know, we have 3 candidates. I assume somebody voted for all 3 candidates. If they want a motion to appoint one of those 3 candidates, then make a motion. Right, we're kind of in that round now. So do I have any motions?
I move to appoint Jim Quigg to the council.
Okay, it's been moved to appoint Jim Quigg to the council. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Son, I didn't hear you. I can't hear you. Okay. So that one fails 2-4. Okay. Now, that was Quigg.
Yeah, no, who was the no votes? Burford and,
Burford, Sherlock, Clark, and Charbonneau.
thank you.
Okay. So as the mayor, right, I'm not normally allowed to make motions, but I am going to make one tonight because we're in a special process. So I moved to appoint Andrew Jacobs to the city council. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion fails 1 to 5. So Clark in favor, everybody else opposed. Okay, now to answer Councilmember Charbonneau's point, we're going to try this again, but I want now people to elaborate, explain why you want to nominate or eliminate a person from the council position. Do I have any motions then? We're going to repeat this. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah, I would move to appoint Allison Sweeney to the city council.
Go ahead and speak to your motion. Why?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, when I think of this job, I think of several things that will make someone successful at doing this work. One, I think you need to have a lot of patience and determination. I think local government is a very slow-moving process, and you have to work with different entities to get things done, and you need to have that continued engagement, right? Sometimes we meet once a month, sometimes we need to go to other meetings to pull in those stakeholders and move those issues forward. And when I think of that patience and determination, Allison is someone I think of. You know, I established our Economic and Community Development Committee a couple of years back, and without, having the other folks that attended that meeting were either folks from commissions I invited, city staff, or the other council members on the committee with me when I was chairing it. Allison attended each of those solely as a community member and continued to do that over the course of time. So I believe she has that level of engagement and determination to sort of move these things down the line, right? We have multi-year projects. We have things I know she's passionate about, like the parks on 95th, because her daughters play soccer. I know there are these different elements we have to take a long-term lens and view on, and I believe she has the ability to do that. I also look for people who are grounded in our community, and I think we're really lucky to have a lot of people applied who are grounded in our community. This is not, it's not exclusive to Allison, but I will say, I think she is very much grounded in our community. When you talk about stepping up to serve on the chamber, when you talk about leading Girl Scout troops in the community, when you talk about being involved locally in our schools. And I think the last thing I look for is I think someone that's not afraid to be their own person and to disagree, to speak their own mind. And specifically, Allison has disagreed with me several times. She didn't like ideas I had to bring forward in Economic Community Development Committee. She didn't like other votes I had taken, and she let me know about it. And that's okay, and I appreciate that, right? I don't want someone that is going to be easily influenced to not stand by their values. I want someone who has an open mind, but I don't want someone who is going to, just go with whatever way the wind blows. I think we have to make a lot of hard decisions here. I think we have to consider a lot of different factors as we make those hard decisions, and I trust her to make those decisions. I think she's going to be an excellent council member. I met with her for the first time when she came to testify about ARPA relief for local small businesses. And when I met with her and in her local business that she owned, and I heard about the Girl Scout troop she run, and I saw her continue to be engaged despite, running a race and losing it. She's someone I asked to serve. And I think, we look at this too, this is a hard ask. This specifically is a hard ask for someone because I think the city benefits the most from continued leadership. And this person will have a very limited time to serve, right? And needs to hit the ground running, right? We already approved the budget, but we're gonna have to improve the comp plan. We're gonna need someone who's familiar with the community and able to serve in that short window they have. It's less than 2 years. And I believe in her ability to do that. I believe in her ability to do that because she's showed up, she continues to show up, and she's versed on these issues. And she's already met with the folks that are leading our city. She's already involved with the stakeholders, and she can immediately, right away, give us that perspective that we don't have as a business owner. Something that's a blind side for me and something I really value, so.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say on the record that I think we had 5 phenomenal people that we interviewed. And I'm not just saying that to be nice. I took extensive notes, and everyone that we interviewed and that applied would be an asset to this council. And I hope that all of you consider running in the future because we need people like you to be up here with us. I looking through all this, the thing that stands out to me about Allison in particular, and why I'm going to continue to vote for her to join us at this time, is everything that Paul said. Of course, I agree with, or excuse me, Councilmember Charbonneau, I agree with, but Allison Sweeney will bring a much needed perspective that's really not currently on this, up here on this council right now, and that's our local businesses. And not only will she bring that as a business owner herself, but she has demonstrated how much she's willing to go into that community that she's a part of and listen and bring their perspectives, not just her own as a business owner. And that's why I truly value that perspective and hope that we can bring her on board quickly.
Yeah, thank you for everyone. I read all your applications and every candidates, and also whether you are interviewed or you didn't get the opportunity to be interviewed. I really feel like what a great asset. I mean, you are all Newcastle treasure. I really thank you for your participation and involvement. Please do consider running next year. And also, I took a lot of notes. I echo everything Charbonneau, Councilmember Charbonneau and Sherlock said. And from my observations and experience, from last year, how hard Allison worked on her campaign, how like little tiny, how close her race was. And also after that, she never quit. And she continued on serving in the community and came to the council meeting several times and stay engaged and involved. And also engage with people from all walks of life, not only in the business community, also to our youth at school, our local education, and the diverse, minority in our city. And I really witnessed Frati Barrow has made such, huge impact, positive impact. It's like a hub in our community. So I'm there all the time, but I was also there, gave me a important platform to meet with so many people, and I got to witness how Allison engaged with everyone. And at this time, I feel strongly that Allison would make a really the best fit for this position. And thank you, and please do consider to run next year. I really thank you for your time and participation. Thank you. 谢谢.
Okay, I have a comment. So thank you, Allison, for your community service, right? I do appreciate that, right? And despite our, contentious perhaps past, but I do have some concerns about Allison being on the council. And this starts with, when it goes back to the ARPA money, which was supposed to be for losses of city revenue. And instead, the first time that I encountered Allison was when she's at the podium saying this money belongs to the businesses. And it was an entitlement that was really concerning because the money belonged to all of the citizens of Newcastle, not just a few businesses. In fact, the comments were, this isn't enough because I won't get enough to pay for my rent. There are 1,210 businesses in the city of Newcastle, and in the last round of ARPA, only 8 people shared $160,000. That's not right. And if I was one of the 8 businesses, common sense would tell me, hey, wait a minute, where about the other people? How come they're giving us all to this? And there was none of that. So, community service aside, I hear a lot, and all the candidates spoke about listening, but I'll remember in June, after we voted, not to raise the pride flag the first time, there wasn't any attempt to listen at maybe why is Mayor Clark concerned about the majority of the residents that was storming into this chamber and lecturing us about how evil we were, essentially.
Point of order.
We're not doing point of order.
Relevance, point of order.
I'm making comments. It's enough. So my objection to candidate Sweeney is that the listening, it's great when you're interviewing and you say, hey, I like to listen, but the reality is quite different. So I can't support a candidate who says they want to listen but has no history of listening. So, I get that 3 people support you, but I can't personally, and I would ask people to consider, beyond the interview, that all sound great, what has actually occurred in the past? Has there been any attempt to understand the other side? I've never had you come to me and say, why did you vote that way, Councilmember Clark? So no, I won't support Allison, and that's my reasoning. And is any other comments on this particular, do I have a motion then? You made a motion, excuse me. So the motion is to appoint candidate Sweeney to the council position. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. Okay, it fails 3-3. Okay, do I have any other motions on the floor?
I move to nominate Jim Quigg.
Okay, want to have something to say about that?
Pardon?
What is your reasoning? Go ahead and tell us why.
Why? Why? The real reason that I support Jim is the fact that I know that he's a guy who really cares. He was down with Tony Ventrella holding his hand when Tony was dying, and he's the guy that I want to share a position with. Thank you, Jim.
Go ahead.
I also support Jim Quigg, given his experience. He works at T-Mobile as an attorney. He has extensive experience in terms of negotiations and looking at contracts and things, and immense amount of volunteering that he does for the community. He's everywhere. You go to the park, you go to the city hall, you go to any event. He is highly dedicated member that I've never seen anybody volunteer as much as he does. All the candidates who came here, they do a lot of volunteering, but I see more of Jim Quigg volunteering than, and I'm sure all of you sitting here will agree that, yes, if given the highest volunteering hours award, I think he'll be the one collecting maybe thousands of hours of, he cares about the community, and that's why he's spending so much time volunteering for it. Secondly, he has extensive experience in the Planning Commission. There's a lot of, honestly, I would say Planning Commission thing I don't understand. I have a finance background, I have expertise in the finance side, but some of us here understand the Planning Commission more. And that's what the council does, we bring out different experiences and we leverage each other for those experiences. And I think he will be a great asset here, given his, volunteering with the Planning Commission. He understands that in and out, his experience with negotiation as an attorney. I think Curtis will understand, he can understand Curtis's language more than we do. So, so a lot of, purely based on his community service and his experience, I think he would be a great fit. And he will hit the ground running, for sure.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to appoint Jim Quigg to the City Council. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Okay, 2-4. Council members Lakoti, or Deputy Mayor Lakoti, and Councilmember Griffin in favor. So I'm going to go and I'm going to make a motion to appoint Andrew Jacobs to the City Council. And so he was the first person we interviewed. And, what I like is the fact that he's been in Newcastle for 30 years. He's seen the changes in Newcastle. He knows, how the community has changed. He knows how it's been growing. And he knows that the people are special, and the key issues is how to grow properly and how to look for opportunities to grow properly. And, when the question came up, how would you handle divisiveness? You want to be reasonable, fair, and equitable, and understand transparent objectives so that you can build trust. And keep an open mind to what people have to say. It's not personal. I've never met Andrew personally, so and I'm seeing him on Zoom for the first time, but I liked what he had to say about, you know, you need to be flexible and seek outside opinions, read the room, and have empathy to the situation, which is really key, right? We need somebody who can do all those things up here and help the community, or help the other council members and add experience. It seems to me that he has the experience, you know, the know-how, and the financial and educational background to help us out. So that's my reasoning for picking Andrew to be on the council. So since I made the motion, all in favor of appointing Andrew Jacobs to the council, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. So we have the same vote as the previous round. The vote, city clerk, 1 to 5. So at this point, we're going to do one more round. We're going to discuss it again, but I'm going to ask for a quick recess. Sorry, I have to use the facilities, excuse me. So we're going to take 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. 10-minute break. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it hasn't been quite 10 minutes, but we're all back, so we'll continue. So during the break, had a chance to think about it a little bit further. And personally, I don't want to see this process go to King County because Newcastle should decide Newcastle's fate, right? It should be the people here on this dais that know Newcastle and understand Newcastle. And the last time that this King County Council decided this vote, they picked a candidate who had just lost and then lost again right after that. So the people said no to a candidate that King County thought was good. And we don't want that situation to happen again. We don't want King County to get it wrong, so to speak, right? And so this is critical, I believe, for us to make a decision and agree on a candidate that everybody can get behind. So we're down to 3 finalists. It's pretty clear to me that the person I've selected, Mr. Andrew Jacob, is not going to receive enough votes, and that's disappointing because I think he's a good candidate. So my first motion, because I'd like to narrow this field down, my first motion, even though I nominated him, is I move to remove Andrew Jacob from the candidate pool. And simply because, I'm sorry, Mr. Jacob, I don't see you're getting the votes. And, you know, I'd like to give the council a more binary choice. So my motion is to remove Andrew Jacob from the council consideration. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, Mr. Jacob, we appreciate very much that you were willing to participate and willing to participate with the family issues that you're having. I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to continue with you to go forward. I would encourage you to apply to next year if you're still interested in running for council. Like I mentioned, look that up on the King County website for the May filing week. But thank you for your time. We hope you have safe travels with your family to and from Kansas City.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So my next motion is, I've already made my position clear on candidate Allison Sweeney, so that leaves 2 people. So I'm pretty certain that Jim Quigg and I do not agree on a lot of things, right? I mean, you know, for sure, right? But I think Jim Quigg is somebody that everybody up here can accept as a candidate, right? Because I don't know him, but I've been to many planning commission meetings, and he's very involved. And this year, the planning commission spent about 3 times or 4 times as much time meeting as the council has. And I know meeting at council is enough of a burden. So I know he's dedicated to the community, and to me, he's not a divisive person that somebody would say, I hate this person, or I don't like this person, or he shouldn't be. I mean, I was at the tree lighting on Saturday, and I was very impressed, and I believe that Jim put the whole thing on and organized it. That was my impression anyway. And like I said, I've seen him on the planning commission. I've seen him, I know him and Tony Ventrella did the softball and the whole community thing. And so, while I probably will have disagreements with him if he's on this council, I think he's a candidate that we can all agree on. Everybody should say, hey, you know, Jim's a person that, you know, would get along with everybody, so it seems. And we've all seemed to, you know, I see some heads nodding, we all seem to like Jim as a person, right? Even though I might not agree with him, but I think that he would be acceptable to everybody. Let's make a decision here and now without involving King County. I mean, he's like the choice that nobody has an issue with, it seems to me, right? So that's where I'm at right now. So I'm reluctant, honestly. My candidate is not going to make it, but I really don't want King County to weigh in when it's our decision to make in Newcastle. And it's for temporary, it's for a year. You know, if he wants to run next year or whatever, he can do that, but it gives us time to kind of stabilize our council. And, you know, I was friends with Councilmember Tallman, but he was kind of a cyclone, and we don't need that. We don't need another one. We need somebody who's going to be, you know, somebody who will listen. And some of the things Jim said in his, I liked what he had to say during his, about, how, this is the small town feel and how he wants to manage growth going forward. And he's very involved in that. And we need to make the community inviting and understand the various communities, make an effort to communicate with everybody. I like the marriage example. Boy, we can all relate to that, right? For sure. So that's my motion. I move, that we appoint Jim Quigg to the vacant council position. I think he's the best choice and the most, the best choice we can all get behind, so to speak. So any comments? Anybody want to speak to that? Go ahead.
I just want to say before we vote that I know Jim, he's my friend, and I know he knows where my heart is right now, and I'm really looking forward to supporting him in the future, but I still believe that Allison is the person that we need to have, the perspective that we need to have on this council right now.
Okay, the motion is to appoint Jim Quigg to the vacant council position. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I say aye.
Aye? Oh, okay, so,
I also want to say why I said aye.
well, hold on a second. So we have a vote of 4-2.
Oh.
So Jim Quigg has been appointed to the council vacant position. Now,
I'd like to take this moment to say why I said aye. I took a lot of notes. I listened very carefully to every candidate during the interview. Like Jim said, he enjoys community service. So everybody in the community, we see Jim everywhere. He also quoted Martin Luther King said, "We're all from different boats, but we are here now." It really, really touched my heart. And I read the notes again. And also, since we are here, we are Newcastle, we want to make our own decision right now. I think for this time, I support Jim too. Also, I just feel like he's very genuine, and he feel like the comment he made, he said, is fulfilling for you to serve the community. Also, I also like that the marriage code too. Also spoke to my heart as well. Yeah. Huh?
It was against the whites.
Yeah. Especially, yeah. Oh, right. He was running against you, right? And
No, the marriage comment was against the whites. It was in favor of men.
oh yes. Yeah. Also, I just want to say I would love Allison to be on the council too, but at this decision, so this is my decision. That's why I just said aye.
okay.
Yeah.
So we have a new appointed council member, Mr. Jim Quigg, and the rest of you, again, I'll reiterate, thank you for applying, and we encourage you to apply again in the future when the next election cycle is up next year. And so congratulations, Jim Quigg. Come on up to the podium here. We're going to ask you a couple questions. Jim, congratulations. So we have two options tonight, Jim. So here's the options we have. So we can swear you in immediately as a council member, or we can swear you in, and I'm going to hopefully get a motion here soon to cancel the next December meeting, but we can swear you in on January 7th, I believe is our next meeting. And the reason I'm giving you a choice is because I know you're heavily involved in the Planning Commission, and they still have more work to do in December. So you may want to be involved in that. So I'm going to offer you the choice. Do you want to become a council member right now? Or do you want to work with the planning commission for the next month and become a, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Should I wait?
yeah.
My heart says just grab it while I can, but Claudia says wait. So, and Claudia, I trust a lot. So Claudia, I'm waiting.
Okay.
We're gonna wait because even though, yes, I made a joke about my wife, I love her to death, and I'd be honored to have her here when this happens for real. And I'm honored to be in this position, so thank you. I love you so much. And honestly, that's Tony's old spot. And I was not long ago talking about how much I love him and how I miss him. And this is it.
Thank you, Jim. We won't ask any more questions. Thank you. Okay, city clerk, we have a new council member we'll swear in on January 7th at the first January meeting. Okay, so that concludes our general business. I'll ask for council's input. Should we come back and do reports and council comment, or should we skip it for the night? Any thoughts? Okay, so we're going to come back. We'll start with reports. Go ahead, Councilmember Charbonneau. Go ahead and give us your reports.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I attended on, most recently, I attended last month the Eastside Human Services Forum meeting, going over their legislative agenda. That's an extension of another committee I'm on. I just want to offer that. I offer these things to folks that are either in person, listening online, or watching a recording if you have questions about it. We went over their legislative agenda, and I wanted to offer that specifically because it's a great organization, but they don't do a great job of having an online presence. Their website's not up to date. Their social media isn't, so you kind of have to be there to know what's going on. So if folks have questions about Eastside Human Services Forum is the organization. And then November 26th, I sat down with Sound City Association for their nominating committee. I was one of four city council members, worked with council members from Algona, Renton, and Duval, and Sound City Association executive director, as well as their staff members, to appoint 125 different mayors, deputy mayors, and council members to different regional boards and committees across the county. So there's a lot of work there. We had a marathon session to get that done. I was thankful to do that and get folks appointed there. And then if folks have questions about that, let me know. And then I will be going, I believe, with our city manager to the East Crisis Response Zone for King County Behavioral Health. That's how they code different zones in the county. A meeting with them on December 9th, upcoming here soon. So I know there's a long break between this meeting and our next one, anticipating we'll be canceling the other one. So if folks have anything on those issues, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Charbonneau. Any other committees, either council or regional committee reports? Anybody? Right, go ahead, Councilmember.
Last Thursday, I attended the WRIA 7 Recovery Council Partners meeting, and we voted for the new chair and vice chair. Also worked together for the upcoming grant cycle, and also approved meeting summary from September 19th, last meeting, because we have a meeting every other month, and also briefing on the 2025 grant round, including considering approval of proposed funding guidance for the cooperative watershed management grant system. And the meeting was very successful. They also thanked Bellevue City Council member John for his service. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll ask the council, or the council in general, does any council member want to make any comments? Otherwise, we're going to skip over that. Okay. My only comment as the mayor is that this weekend I have new flags that I'll be putting up on Saturday, which is Pearl Harbor Day. There's no formal ceremony, but if you would like to be there, 8 a.m. Saturday, I'll be out here putting up new flags with my dear wife for helping me out with that. So you're welcome. Moving on, we have additional public comments. City Clerk, has anybody signed up for second public comment? Okay. So the second public comment is the same as the rules as the first. If I call your name, come to the podium. You have 3 minutes to state your issue. The buzzer will sound when you're done. State your name and neighborhood. Claudia Hershey, come on up.
My name is Claudia Hershey from the Newport Woods neighborhood. I'm actually recently elected Newport Woods Community Club president, so you'll probably see even a little more of me. I'm just here to say, didn't we have a fantastic group of candidates here tonight? Wow, wow. They are all kind, they're all courteous, they're all dedicated, they're all enthusiastic. They brought forth many, many, many skills. They make me feel very optimistic about Newcastle's future. They're all a lot younger than I am, so they have a longer future here in Newcastle. Although I won't go away until I can't get here anymore. I just really look forward to what I've seen here tonight as the future of Newcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you. There was nobody else signed up for public comment? Oh, Ed, sure, come on up.
So I just want to remind the community of a couple of events we have coming up this weekend. On Saturday, there's the Songs of the Season event, which is a holiday concert with kids from some of the local schools. So Liberty High School, Maywood, Newcastle Elementary, and Tyee Middle School will be represented there. It's at the Commons from starting at 2 o'clock. It'll last about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then on Sunday, there's a holiday market happening in the Safeway parking lot. So that'll run from 12 to 5, and there's going to be about 20 or so vendors that are going to be selling their gift items. So you can do your holiday shopping there on Sunday. And you guys are all welcome, and of course the community is all welcome to both those events. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, moving on to the planning calendar, city manager, unless you have any additional comments tonight? No? Okay, planning calendar?
Really, Mayor, the main item is whether we want to cancel the December 17th meeting or not. And we'll continue to update the planning calendar as we get more details on
So
next
we'll
year's events.
pause there a moment. Any motions to cancel December 17th meeting?
I move to cancel the December 17th council meeting.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to cancel the December 17th meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, there you go, city manager.
I don't have anything else unless there's questions.
Nothing else, okay. Any questions for the city manager? Okay, seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.